Hey, I'm Ryan. This is my brother Daniel, and this is Rolls in the Family. And today we are doing what we do every single month. Believe it or not.
The monthly rhythm.
We come here and we talk about our top 3 plays of the previous month, this being October 2024.
Is this the highlight of your month, Ryan?
The highlight, just sitting here with you to talk about, always.
I hope it's the highlight of our viewers' month. Can you? That'd be...
Yeah, maybe. So we got a little bit of gaming in this month, actually, together a little bit. We had a family trip for a family wedding that didn't get a lot, but a little bit.
Snuck in some.
It's a different dynamic when we've got is it like six kiddos between all the siblings here? It's
yes. Go entertain yourselves. We're trying to play Twilight Struggle.
Gone are the days of just like, let's hammer out a bunch of games.
Yeah.
But we did squeeze some in, and we're going to talk about them today. We'll have links to all of them down in the description below if you want to check them out. We also would love if you drop in the comments what your top play of October was. Did you have a really nice play recently? Tell us about it. But let's jump right into it, Daniel. See if we have any crossover here, but we'll start with your number 3.
Well, my number 3 will not be a crossover.
Okay.
This is a game that I don't know, Ryan, you probably have the experiences where you have a game that just hasn't been played in so long, and you know it's a good game, but maybe it's just hard to find the right situation, and then you have that moment come and you pull it out. And it just does exactly kind of what you were going for. And that was the experience with this game. Getting to the table was Tiny Towns. So I was trying to think, actually, I hadn't played Tiny Towns in quite some time. And it's a, fun kind of, every person's got their grid. One of the things I really enjoy about it is that you're all playing kind of simultaneously. You rotate around calling out a resource, then everyone has to place that resource somewhere onto their little grid, and then you're essentially trying to collapse resources to build buildings. And so it's a game essentially of trying to keep your options open, because you're not calling the resource every single time. So you're trying to stay flexible based off your opponents, calling things that you may not necessarily want. But yeah, we had a couple over, and it was one of those okay, we've got the kids actually were entertaining each other, which was pretty nice. And so we had 45 minutes or so, and so it was just man, this is they hadn't played this one before, so we're this would fit really well. And it was great. I was reminded again of the game just feels very different than a lot of games that I have. One, obviously, in the I feel like we like games where you've got shapes and you're trying to fit things together, but it's a different way to think about it, where you're doing the whole placing resources, but then when you can build a building, right, it collapses all down to one.
Yeah, and
that's a really fun kind of thing to maneuver and keep your options. It can also be very frustrating of things you're no, why did you call that? I didn't want that. But I don't know. There's a lot of just interesting strategy in that. And I don't know, it kind of works my brain in a different way.
Totally.
Super cool that they've got, tons of, each game you can use different buildings. Those are randomized each game. You at the start get a random kind of personal building for your little pink building, so everyone's kind of, and I think we deal 2 and you get to pick one, and so you've got kind of one that's specific to maybe what you're wanting to do. It plays quick. It's got kind of the not a lot of games have this where you actually get knocked out, people are kind of falling off. Fortunately, the game's quick, and so it's not you're out of the game very long. But man, if you're that,
unless you really mess up,
which I will say I have seen that happen, and it is a tragedy. But it's if you can be the one that can hang on to and be that at the end, and you're just calling your resources, every single time. That is such a satisfying it's like your finish to the game is just this like you feel the accomplishment of like I just get to call everything because I was more efficient than the rest of you. So it was a great game of Tiny Towns, and that was one that was kind of like, is that gonna hang around? I don't know, but getting it back to the table, I was like, I'm cool with Tiny Towns in the collection, Ryan. I'm cool with them Tiny Towns.
Yeah, it adds a like kind of this like temporal aspect to the spatial puzzle of like you're gonna collapse things, so you can start building something else next to it with the assumption that okay, this is gonna collapse first, and that'll open up spots that I can finish this.
At least you think that's what's gonna happen.
Yes, yeah. So it's definitely a different like kind of dynamic than just filling a grid or whatever.
Yeah, I will say it's a game where you need good lighting because we played a game of this with my wife's family, and her poor father couldn't discern the colors, and it led to one of the most horrific games of Tiny Towns I've ever seen. So
blame the lighting. Let us know below if you want to know the top 10 games that need really good lighting.
That would actually be that'd be a really interesting video.
Hardest games to play.
Really interesting video. There you go. Yeah, let us know.
Nice. Well, my number 3, in fact, is a game that we played together. And this is a game that when we played it, it was my first time ever playing it, or all of our first time ever playing it. It was a game I had picked up recently and was very intrigued to try. It kind of is it's a pretty unique beast, so I wasn't sure exactly when it was going to get to the table, but we had kind of a nice opportunity. I think it was us, your wife, and our older brother. And the 4 of us tried out QE, otherwise known as quantitative easing. If that doesn't get you excited,
which one's a better title? Like quantitative easing or QE?
QE, I don't know. It's a very strange game where thematically it's like you're bailing out companies in like the 2008 financial crisis or something. But you're these like banks or whatever that can just like basically print money. And so it's this auction game where every round there's something up for auction, and it, has a point value from like 1 to 4 or something. It has one of the different like industries, and it has one of the different countries. And so that's going to be more or less valuable to different people because there's like kind of some set collection stuff, and depending on which country you are. But then everybody is going to write their bid of what they want to bid for that, but you can bid literally anything. Like anything at all. I guess what happens first is the person who's the auctioneer reveals their bid. So they do a bid and they reveal it. So that kind of like anchors it a little bit. But then everybody else can write whatever they want. Like you could have put 100 and I could be like 700,000 like if I want to. Yeah. And then all of those go in, and the auctioneer is the only one that gets to look at all of them. And then the auctioneer says who wins, but does not reveal the winning bid. So say I won it, I'll get it returned to me. They'll write my bid on the back of the token that I won, but keep it secret to the end of the game. And then you do another one. And so as you're going, every time you're the auctioneer, you get some information about kind of like where people are at potentially. But it's this whole game of like, I can bid whatever I want to win these things, but at the end of the game, whoever has bid the most money loses, or whoever spent the most money. And so you don't want to be the most. And man, does that create an interesting dynamic. And I think we got exactly the experience that like you hope to get out of this, of just like, we were just like laughing every round as we're like, this is just so funny and interesting to figure out. And I was kind of the one getting the short end of the stick of, I kept losing. I don't know how much I was losing by on these early bids, but we're getting later into the game and I haven't like won anything. So I'm not going to win unless I get some stuff. So now I feel like I need to be more aggressive. And so by the end of the game, I had won the fewest things, but spent the most money. So I did not win.
You didn't win.
I think it was really close between you and our older brother. I think did you end up edging out at the end?
Oh, that's actually a good question. I
think you might have.
Yeah, check that here. See if. if I pull
So
it off.
it was.
Oh no, our older brother. Yeah, 30. He had 37. I had 33. So.
Okay. And so that's an example of he won a lot of things early on.
Yeah.
And as the game goes on, we all are like pushing each other up. And so by the end, some of these bids I'm making to win things were more than everything he had spent in the at the beginning of the game. But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing it if. So very, very fascinating game. I'm very intrigued to get. I know there's an expansion that adds kind of like this commodity thing for second place that's supposed to maybe give it a little bit more maybe replay value. But it's one I'm really happy to have just because it's so unique and like with the right group, it just is a really fun.
Yeah.
I've talked about games that I find more interesting than fun. This is like in the category of the interesting part of it is a big part of the appeal, but I also found it fun.
Yeah.
Like we did have a good time playing it. So
Right.
It strikes a nice balance and I had a good time trying it for the first time.
Yeah, Ryan, I agree. And I agree so much that it is my number 2.
Saw the words coming out of your mouth.
Ryan, this is one of those games where like you read the rules and you're like, there's no way this actually works. You know, like this feels so broken. How does
just like really fragile?
And oh my goodness, I mean, you were saying this. It was so funny. Like, we are just because it's just this like, you know, you don't know fully what's being offered or, you know, what people are writing down. But then when you're the one, you know, you get some good information when you're the one who gets to look at them all. Because you kind of see, it gives you some calibration of like, where are people at in terms of, and sometimes it is wildly different where people are at with stuff. It was about as good of a, I think, first experience with that game as we could have had. And so, I had a blast with it. It will be interesting. You've talked a little bit about the expansion because I did wonder, you know, how much of it was kind of the novelty factor. We talked about with a game like Awkward Guess, where it was like awesome the first time we played it. I worry maybe a little bit. Is this one going to have some of that kind of like it wears off?
Are you going to want to play it over and over?
But it sounds like maybe some of the things the expansion adds could be huge in helping some of that, replayability and whatnot. And I think also, you know, I did feel a little bad for you because, like, I would say you had the worst experience, which it was still on your top plays, I guess. But in terms of like. Yeah, you didn't win anything early, and
there's
so then
definitely
it was
a point you can get where it's going to be really, really hard to get back into it. Like, I think we got to a point where it was either going to be you or our brother.
Yeah,
and we kind of knew that.
Yeah, because if you don't win any early, like, I think just naturally you just as it's like an exponential ramping of money being spent.
Yeah, and the rewards you're getting, the things that are being bid on, aren't going up.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just like random ones from the deck.
Like early wins are kind of huge. Yeah.
Which I was thinking about this. It's interesting then, because if we were to play with the same group, if we all think that.
Yeah, then
it's still gonna we're gonna be going harder. It's gonna do the same.
It's just gonna mean we're gonna end up spending more and more each game we play.
Yeah,
right?
Which is, I mean, it's part of what's so funny and fun about it. Is just like the group dynamic.
Yeah, but it sounded like when you were talking about the expansion that there was some kind of interesting things that it does to help because aren't there ways you can get points like some other way?
Well, you basically, there's something that if you get second place, you get the commodity thing, and so the different commodities kind of score in different ways or whatever. Yeah. And so that just adds a little bit. Like, even if you've been missing out on the first place every time, there's still some room to stay in it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it was great. I was super happy. That was honestly that was that was just such a great way to end that night. Yeah, it was late and we were dying laughing, so it was good.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, there's so many different things that can be funny because like there's times where you put in something and you're like, okay, I'm really going after this one. and the person looks at all of them, and then they slide it to another person, and you're just laughing because you know that means you know what you put in,
and then you're
that
like,
means
oh
they
my
went
gosh, they
even
went
over
higher.
that.
I know. I know.
It was very, very intriguing game. Really, nothing like it. That was a pretty unique. If you're looking for a unique kind of quicker experience, it's pretty unique.
Yeah.
Cool. My number 2 is a game that I have been anticipating for a long time. It was a something I crowdfunded back last year, back when I was a little bit more open to crowdfunding. We'll talk about that in a future video. But
spicy.
Finally came and have had the opportunity to try it actually 3 times within a couple weeks, which was really nice. One was with you. I'm not going to count that one. I'm going to say it was the first time I played it.
Unbelievable.
No, I think the first time I played it was probably the highlight, just the way the game went, and because it was just like seeing like, oh man, this game is really cool, kind of that first experience with it.
Yeah.
This is Endeavor Deep Sea. And so this is a kind of reskinning, reimagining of an older game called Endeavor, and then they did a reprint as Endeavor Age of Sail, and now it's Endeavor Deep Sea. And kind of a medium weight game. Like, it is not rules heavy, but it's got this interesting dynamic of, you're kind of exploring this ocean. There's these ocean tiles that come out, and everybody starts with like one sub, and then you have these specialists. Everybody starts with just like your default specialist that can like do any of the actions. And it's kind of like this disc economy of, at the beginning of every round, you get to gain a new specialist, which you can kind of think almost like your own personal worker placement spot. You're kind of like customizing your action options. And so you get a new specialist, but then you produce a certain amount of discs, or you get to remove discs off your specialist that like you used in a previous round and get new discs. And then once you get into the actual action phase, you're basically using discs you have available to take actions on your specialist. And those are actions to move your sub around, do things like sonar or some of these other things that like bring out new tiles or do things on the map. And you're kind of looking for opportunities to just score points and do things as you're exploring out there. But it's very much an engine building game because everybody has this board with these tracks, and like the top track that determines what specialists you can recruit. So if you can bump that a lot up, then you're going to be able to get some of the better specialists when you recruit. Then there's the one that is how many discs you can take back, which is really an interesting dynamic because like you're taking actions on these specialists. Well, if you haven't, I think it's like coordination or something. If you haven't gotten that high enough, you're not going to be able to take those all off. So you're going to have to choose certain ones to stay, occupied for the next round, meaning you won't be able to use them again. And then there's the disc production. It's one of these things where, like, every one of these tracks, if you're doing bad in it, you feel the pain of it. Because like every round you get to recruit a specialist, and if you haven't been doing that up, you're like, man, I can just like get another one at this level that's not as good. But like I was running into a game where I did not do a good job doing my coordination up, and I was like, crap, like all my specialists are like going to be clogged up. Like I can't, even if I have the disc, I can't take enough actions. So kind of an interesting dynamic of kind of how you choose to upgrade different things. But then it's such a fun tactical puzzle of out on the map, what things can I get to? What could I do with my actions this turn? And I don't know, I don't know that like I've played or like there's a game that I would compare it to that it felt a lot like. It felt pretty unique. I would agree. To me.
Yeah, it did feel very different.
And it kind of has this nice game arc that like in the early rounds, you just have a few specialists and a few discs. So you're kind of just doing a few actions. But by that final round, you have, 7 specialists, including your team leader. And you're, doing a lot and trying to squeeze as much out as possible. And the different exploration tiles that come up are very cool, and like the different things that can happen on them. Like I remember we saw one that was like the caves, and so it was a tile that you can't go on it yourself, but each of these like little submerged caves is attached to one of the sides, and so it like extends the space on the side that you can get to it. But then like I had a game where I can't remember if it was the one with you or a different one, that we had the like robotic guy, the little robot that came out, the Wanderer or something. And it was like this thing that if you go to that tile, you can actually move the robot around and take actions as if you were where the robot was. And then you could like upgrade the robot. And so it was one of these things of like that tile only comes out every, 4 games or something, but so made the game feel different because of how it changed it. So I have had a lot of fun with this one. Honestly, I felt like our session was maybe not the best. I don't know what it was about it. I mean, maybe it was the environment a little bit. It was just the two of us. But maybe it also just didn't. Me, Maybe it was just you. You won, right?
I did win.
It felt like we didn't like do as much as I remember in like my other 2-player games. Like we just didn't get as much done.
Yeah.
But that might just be a little bit like how the things come out and the bonuses. Like sometimes, you don't get as good combos as other times.
Yeah, but I feel like I want to try that one again. Because playing it, because I would agree with you. Like it was cool. But it didn't like I don't know. There was just something about it that it wasn't like, And I remember when we were playing it, I was like, man, it seems like this game isn't like giving me the same feeling as when I had played it the previous 2 times. But, it may have just been you. It could have. People have been telling me that. They're like, games are just words with you.
But I'm pretty excited about this one. And that the one we played is the most vanilla scenario. And so there's, I think, like 8 or 10 different scenarios that change kind of what you're doing with endgame scoring and all these things. And so there's a lot of cool kind of replay value here in mixing it up. And it plays, closer to kind of the 90-minute range probably. Which is kind of nice when a lot of times some of these bigger feeling games take closer to 2.5 hours. Yeah. So far I'm very happy with picking this one up and excited to, honestly, I'm mostly excited to play with more players because all 3 of my games have been with 2. Yeah. And I can see how it'd be very fun, the dynamics like on the map, adding at least another player in there.
And other players.
And really just like 3 players that don't include Dango would be ideal, really.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Happy with this one so far. Looking forward to early diagnosis is good.
Looking good. Feels like that'd be an easy one to expand to. Just get more tiles and all that. Very nice, Ryan. Moving to my number 1. This is a game we did play together. And kind of, interesting that it's the number 1 because I feel like it was our mindset going into it was like, okay, we just need to play this real quick, specifically because like our nephew we can include him and then we'll get to maybe I think we maybe played Endeavor Deep Sea after this. I'm trying to remember the order of it, but I'm just making everything up. But anyways. This game just, it's like such a staple. We have raved about this game so much, and yet sometimes you wonder, does a game start to, lose its ability to deliver an awesome experience? And I just had so much fun playing the Quacks of Quedlinburg. There's the caveat that I won this game, and that's, if you have a bad game of Quacks, it can be a little less fun. But Ryan, I will never get tired of just that the going into a game and what kind of bag do I want to build, and this one, I really went after the blue chips because they were it was the one where you draw whatever number blue chip you draw, that many pulls from the bag you don't bust. So if I pull a blue 4, the next 4 draws. I won't. Well, if you bust, you don't lose. You still get both rewards. And so I went really hard on that, and it's a really interesting one because I don't know. I feel like on the surface, you're kind of like, okay, that's nice, but I think one of the biggest benefits is what it does, like psychologically for you, because you can just be way more aggressive on. Yeah. And there's the reward. It's kind of like almost a hidden thing of there's times where you would stop that you now keep going. And so that the reward of this chip is the gap of you know, where you would have stopped to where now you're finally finishing.
And even if you're not drawing on, like if you're not currently protected, if you know you have a lot of those, you're like, if I could just get one.
Yeah.
Like me choosing to do one more chip could mean I get to do 3 more chips, 2 or 4 more chips.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does kind of just like make you want to keep going.
Yeah. So I was really leaning hard into that. I think I got some of those clear chips that come in the expansion that copy, and so that was really helpful as well. Also had a few of the black chip. I think I had 2 of the black chips, and I was getting
somehow because
yeah, you want to
I also bought a black chip, and this is one of the ones that was like whoever's black chip is furthest.
Yeah,
and I swear I never would draw it. You got the reward every single time.
I think I did. Yeah, and that's huge because that's getting your little droplet to move. I mean, I think
let's just say Quacks and Quedlinburg will not be my number one play.
Was it a rough?
I definitely had a little bit of a rough game.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was just so great. Like it was so fun that we can include like our nephew who I forget how old he is now, but
is he 7 now?
Yeah, 7, but like he loves that. It's a game that has such a wide appeal, of our people who aren't as big into games really enjoy it. We enjoy it. So like a game that can just span all of that, and it's got simultaneous play, which keeps things moving. It's not very much downtime. And one of the most just satisfying physical actions you do in a game. Yeah, I don't know how other way to put it, but it's a very dense game in that you're always doing things. Yeah, you're
which is cool.
Totally. So there you go, Ryan. Coming in. I don't know if I've if Quacks has come in at number 1 for me before. Maybe it has, but because I feel like it's a game that is like it's really good, but is it going to be the best? And I don't know. It was just, I was looking back at the month. I was like, that was so much fun. I was just having a good old time. And then looking over at Ryan, just struggling over there. It was great.
Everything's going well, and going well for Dangle, going poorly for Ryan.
Oh my gosh! The greater the gap between my experience and your experience, that's what puts something.
That's what really
1.
makes a top play. Yeah. Well, what really makes a number 1 for me is when Daniel isn't present in the game.
That's okay. I see it.
My number 1, you were not in. This has been a long time coming. I think we've multiple times on the channel talked about how, man, I need to get this one played. I think you've mentioned it being like the number 1 game you want to play out of my collection that you don't have. And I finally made it happen. And it lived up to what I know this game can deliver. And this is Millennium Blades. And I've talked about, I feel like a little bit of a theme on this list so far. I said QE is really unlike any game. Endeavor Deep Sea felt pretty unique. Millennium Blades might take the cake in just uniqueness of game.
Yeah.
Because you are simulating being a player in a collectible card game, trading card game. So you are doing the deck building during the game. Mm-hmm. And so it's this wide open, like timed thing where you're throwing down stacks of cash and buying boosters, buying cards, and looking through them and trying to decide which ones can go together into your little deck, which is like 9 cards or something. But then you're also trying to build up a collection that you can sell, because that also gets you points that all need to be like the same type but different star values. And then with the newer version that I have, they replaced, because I guess in the old version, like people, it actually was like a good strategy to like hoard money and just score points for money at the end, which is like completely against
gosh, that's terrible.
against the idea of the game. So they don't score for money now, and they added this new NPC thing where there's basically like 3 available at any point that have some conditions that you would have to do to gain them. So it'll be like, oh, this person, you need to spend 4 cards of different star values that are the same type or something,
Mhm.
or there's all these different things. So you can kind of be trying to go after that, and there's the aftermarket that people can sell cards, and then other people can potentially buy them, and so all this is happening simultaneously, and it's all in preparation for the end of that phase. Which one other cool thing during that phase is you just get more cards. Like it's like, oh, 7 minutes, everybody gets 6 more cards, and then like we hit this, and so you're just getting it. If you don't like reading lots of cards, this is not the game for you. But if you love that, looking for combos and trying to find what could go together, and man, there is nothing like it, because you're just always getting new information, trying to decide what's the best way to use it. And then at the end of that phase, you're gonna score your collections, and now you go into the tournament and you actually play your deck, and everybody plays against it, and that's kind of where the most points come, is from placing in the tournament. And you do that 3 times. So it's not a short game. I think it was a 3-player game, and it took us about 3 hours. But man, it is just...
It's a delight.
With the right people, it is so fun. And I think 3 is kind of the sweet spot, in length and kind of dynamic between players. And we were playing with like the character abilities. So like I had this character that I couldn't buy cards from the normal market. Instead, the only way I could buy cards was spend $3 and get the top 3 cards from the deck. And I would pick 1 to keep, 1 to put in the aftermarket, and 1 to discard, which was crazy because it just meant we had so many cards in the aftermarket. Cause like every time I buy anything, I'm like putting things out there. So there was this whole dynamic of like, everybody has lots of options they can see in the aftermarket. So that was kind of weird. And then one of the other players had the like robot metagame one, because every tournament there's like 2 different metas that if you have at least 1 card in your tableau at the end that matches that, you'll get bonus points. So you can kind of try to play to it. And he got like extra points if he matched it, and like bonuses for playing ones that matched it. And then the other player had the one where you can bring 2 deck boxes and an extra accessory, which is a very fun one, because deck boxes are kind of like big things that define your strategy, because it'll be like you score for every dark card you have, and there's a lot of much more exotic ones that do weird things, but it's kind of the things that you might build a strategy around so you can score a lot from your deck box. So what's cool with that character is now any 2 combinations of deck boxes, there's so many different like strategies you could go for, and kind of combinations of things. And yeah, so it was everything I wanted it to be, like as far as wanting to get this back to the table. I somehow managed to squeak out a win despite not performing that well in the tournaments. Like I think I got like third, second
you have good
in the tournament
collections,
but I was better in the collections and better in the NPCs. Which both the players that were playing hadn't played before. And I think
those are the parts that are easy.
Those are the parts that are a little harder to like really lean into when you're kind of new to it. But it was very, very close. It was fun to see the different decks that other people do and kind of what they bring to it. I had the first round that I tried something and I was like, man, I like ended up going with a deck box that I realized like really did not go well with I forget what my character's like in tournament power. Oh no, my in-tournament power was really strange. It was like every turn I get to take the top card of the deck and add it to my character as like a second hand. And that's now available that I can play it, and I get bonus points if I play cards from that hand. So during the tournament, I'm like incentivized to just like
random cards,
do like work random things into my strategy.
That is so interesting.
Which was really fun, but it was hard when I'm building my deck, because I'm building my deck, and normally you're kind of master planning, these are the cards I think I'm going to play. But I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to want to try to play these other ones, so I more want to like
a versatile kind of
cards that are kind of pretty versatile and working
Oh my
so
gosh.
it was a lot of fun. I don't think there's obviously a lot of luck. That last tournament I just got hosed, and that every card I drew in that was like not usable at all. But yeah, it's fun how wild a lot of the stuff in this game is as far as card abilities. And
I feel like this is one of those games that it's so fun to like introduce it to people, because
if you know that they're the type of person,
if they're the type, because they're just like, what? like, this is someone came up with this. This is incredible. You know, it's just so unique from anything out there, which is what makes it so great.
Yep. Someday when Daniel's out here, we'll have to get some Millennium Blades in, because it had been a long time since I played it, and I don't think the last time was with you, so it's probably been
I miss that game so much.
5 years or so.
Yeah, it's that really is, like, if you ask me, like, what game do you have that I want to play the most, it's that one. And it scratches an itch unlike any itch that I have.
Yeah, we don't want to hear about your itches, Daniel, but but it is one of the, like, games that feels safest in my collection, as far as, like, because there's games that I really, really like, but are more like other games that it's like, I could see a world where a new game comes out that's like, man, I think but there's never gonna be something that, like, would replace it. So super unique, and you know, as the we often are the ones hosting these game nights or whatever, and sometimes you just gotta, like, make it happen. Yep. You gotta get games to the table.
That's right.
But there you have it, October 2024. Hopefully we get some good gaming in next month.
We've got links to every single one of these fine board games down below, and hey, clicking on those links, it is a way to support the channel, and we greatly appreciate that. And we've also got a couple more videos here, plenty of videos to check out and hear more about our love of board games. We'll see you in the next one.